Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. Thank you for tuning in on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, on 93.9 in Louisville. More to come. And again, downloaded in 22 countries. We appreciate your support. One of those countries that listens to us on a regular basis is Ireland, which is the home of one of the really class guys in the business, Brendan Walsh, the trainer of many multiple graded stakes winners, including a terrific 2-year-old Maxvill. And he joins us now from New Orleans, where he'll base this winter. Brendan, thanks for being on.
Hi, Kenny. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How about yourself? What's the process of, when it's like a lot of people go south for the winter? You trainers go south for the winter, or fairly close to south as you can, and you chose to obviously keep it back at the fairgrounds where you've been.
Well, I send half the horses to the fairgrounds, Kenny, and then I send the other half to Palm Meadows in Florida and run it at Gulfstream primarily. So it's a nice mix between the two because, I go from one to the other myself. I send one of my assistants to Florida, one to New Orleans, and there's a direct flight between the two places. So, I can be at one or the other pretty easy all the time, so I get to see the horses as much as I can.
Does it matter where you go with which horse? Do you map that out pretty thoroughly, Brendan, and start working on that a few weeks in advance, that this one will be at Palm Meadows, this one will be at the fairgrounds?
It all depends really on, there's a lot of factors. There's some owners prefer to be at one or the other. It works good for me. I send a lot of the horses. I have a good mix. Half the people tend to prefer Palm Meadows, half like New Orleans, and we can make it fit either place. And then of course Florida's good, Kenny, because you can, we back off a good few horses in the fall after the fall period, kind of December, give them an easy month in December and bring them down to Palm Meadows, early, middle of January, and get them ready for Kentucky. Palm Meadows is great. You can work horses on the grass there as much as you want, pretty much. So that's a big help as well. So, and then a lot of the more active horses, initially the younger horses, the 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, a lot of them tend to go to New Orleans. So we managed to, it's a lot of ducking and diving, but we managed to mix it up pretty good, and I think we've a nice team of horses in both places.
I think really early on in your career, you go out on your own in 2012, I believe, and New Orleans has kind of been almost a second home for you.
Yeah, actually, Kenny, I started training in Florida. The first winter I started training started in Florida, but about I think this is our 4th winter now in New Orleans. We kind of got a little bigger and we couldn't get enough stalls in Florida, so we decided we'd try New Orleans. And the first year we came down here, we had a fantastic excuse me, I'm trying to sneeze. We had a fantastic winter. It was the year we won the New Orleans Handicap with Honourable Judy and the Mine Shaft with him, and we had a couple of other really nice stakes wins down here. And I was thinking to myself, why had I not come down here sooner? But the weather was beautiful. Of course, the last couple of years down here, the weather hasn't been so good, and we haven't been winning any New Orleans handicaps since either. But no, it's a great spot. It's a nice place to come. The horses tend to do really well down here because it's a nice kind of a cool mornings, warm afternoon climate, and the track is fantastic here. It's a great surface, and so it works out good. And it fits the program well.
And they have maybe the best food in the country at the Fairgrounds racetrack.
Yeah,
by racetrack standards.
Yeah, or New Orleans in general, Kenny. You always end up going back up to Kentucky 4 or 5 pounds heavier than what you came in. If you're running up light there, leaving Kentucky, you tend to put it back on when we get to New Orleans. So, but it's nice. It's good fun down here, and people enjoy it and that. So it's a good spot.
We're talking with Brendan Walsh, a multiple stakes winning trainer. He mentioned Honorable Duty, Proctor's Ledge, Carey Street, Multiplier, and of course, an incredible 2-year-old Maxvill that unfortunately for you, you had to take a step back this year at the Breeders' Cup. He wasn't. He came up, he didn't look quite right, and being the great horseman you are, you made the decision for the horse that there'll be plenty of racing ahead if you keep him healthy.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Kenny. Listen, it was a no-brainer in California. He wasn't moving quite right. Um, so we decided it didn't take much thinking, unless the horse was 110%, we weren't going to run him. So we stopped on him and brought him back and looked into him, and he had a chip in an ankle which we had taken out. And in hindsight, a lot of people said to me, the way the race worked out and all, he probably would have had a very good chance to have won it. We'll never know if he would or not. But it was a tough race, and it seemed like a race was hard on the horses that ran on it. Yeah. And sometimes these things happen for a reason, and it might actually, it might work to our advantage too. It was a tough race to put a 2-year-old through, and I'm just glad we spotted his issue when we did, and we didn't. Sometimes you don't see these things, and you end up running, and they come back injured, and then you can ruin a horse for life with stuff like that. So, he's a horse we've always thought would be a better horse, as a 3 and as a 4-year-old, and what he's done as a 2-year-old. I mean, he's totally overachieved, I think, if nothing else. And physically and mentally, he'll be a better horse next year and the year after, and we'll look forward to that.
And a lot of people still paying attention, Brendan. As you know, the first Derby Future comes out. He's in the top 3 in Vegas right now. He's in the top 3 in the Derby Future book. So expectations high. Don't you love that? I guess, though, it's better than not having a potential Derby runner, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I mean, it's unbelievable to have a horse, a nice, high-profile horse like him, And I mean, it just goes to show how impressive he was, especially that day at Keenan.
Yeah.
Because people tend to forget these horses as time goes along. I mean, the picture changes. We saw last weekend again, the whole picture changes. I mean, it'll change 20 times between now and May. So, it's nice that people haven't forgotten us. And, I think it's a mark of how impressive he was as a 2-year-old.
And Brendan, with the successes you've had and the horses you've been associated with as assistant and throughout your career, Maxvill at Keenan, that was one of the most impressive performances I've seen a 2-year-old in a while. I mean, he really looked great.
Yeah, no, it took a long time to sink in, Kenny, but the more we look at it, the more impressive he was. And God, it was fantastic. It's just unbelievable to have a horse of that caliber, because then, you get very good horses, and we've had good horses, and no disrespect to any of the good horses we've had, but he looks like, that day he looked like he was on another level again. So to have a, kind of horse like him is probably a horse you might be lucky to have maybe just once in your career, if even that.
Yeah, and you certainly, and I know that the care you're giving him right now. What is his winter schedule like before you get him back into racing as a 3-year-old, Brendan?
Well, he's over in Godolphin's pre-training facility right now at Keeneland. So, he's just resting at the moment, and he's just walking. And next week, I think he's ready to start maybe some paddock turnout and that. So he'll get another good month under his belt there, hopefully. And like I said, the first week or two in January, we'll talk about getting him in and get him down to Florida, and then we'll just we'll work it from there. I mean, it doesn't, it cuts us a little tight on time. But I'm saying that he's actually, for a big horse, he's pretty easy a horse to get fit. I don't think that'll be a problem, but we wouldn't want to miss any time, in the interim. But look, we won't force him either, Kenny, to make the Derby if if everything runs smoothly and he makes it, or he makes the preps or what we have to do to make the Derby. Then we'll do it. But we're not going to, do something stupid just to make the Derby and ruin the horse in the process. We'll let him tell us, and we'll go along from there, because obviously everyone wants to win the Derby, and you're only, like we said earlier, it's not going to be every year that you're going to get a horse that's capable of winning it. But on the same hand, there's a lot of good 3-year-old races after, and good 4-year-old races next year. And I think the main thing is we keep the best interests of the horse in mind, and go from there.
The outstanding Maxvill, maybe the Derby favorite, who knows, by the time the spring rolls around. We're talking with his trainer, Brendan Walsh. More with Brendan when we come back here on the Horse Racing Show. Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. Delighted to have Brendan Walsh with us. He's already down at the fairgrounds in New Orleans getting ready for the winter. He'll have horses in Florida and in New Orleans. And as we were talking about, Maxvill, who's one to watch for the Derby in 2020 in Kentucky right now, will be going to Florida, if all goes well, probably around the first of the year. Brendan, yourself, I mean, what a career this has been. County Cork, I believe. Is that correct in Ireland?
That's correct, Kenny. Yeah, little village in Cork there, down by the sea.
And being an Irish guy myself, Rice is Irish. I sure didn't want to miss the county. I'd been very embarrassed if I had. But yeah, you went to jockey school at the Curragh, right? Wait,
I did. Yeah, originally. I wanted to be a jockey originally, Kenny, and it didn't quite work out. I went to the jockey school, and I think I just basically got very homesick. The kids at home, I think we were 15 when we went there. And, it's young enough for kids to be taken away from home. And I don't think they really do it that young anymore. I think now they've raised the age a little bit. But yeah, I got a bit homesick and just went back home and finished stout school, and then kind of went the stud farm route for a couple of years. But there wasn't enough action in that for me, Kenny, so the racing dragged me back. And, I ended up back on Sheikh Mohammed's farm in Kildangan in Ireland. And we used to break and pre-train a lot of his stock. In fact, all of his stock at the time. I mean, it was very busy. So we galloped there, and I got lucky enough the first year, actually, we broke horses for Godolphin. They brought us out to Dubai, and I went out and I got to know some of the guys in the main Godolphin part of the outfit. And, I ended up taking a job with them after a couple of years. They asked me to go to Newmarket, and we just went from there. I went from being a rider to a foreman to help run a barn and all that. And we did I think I did 9 winters in Dubai and all that. Go to Dubai for the winter and then come back to the UK or to the US for the summer. And, so it was a fantastic job around some fantastic horses and some great people,
And a great relationship you've had with Godolphin all these years.
Unbelievable, and it was unreal, Kenny, to actually win my first Grade 1 for them. I mean, yeah. We used to look at all that back in the day, and you'd never think that you would ever train a horse, especially a horse like Maxvill, to win a Grade 1 for them. But yeah, I mean, it was great. And of course, going to Dubai last year was fantastic with Plus Q Parfait to win the Derby. It was surreal. The last 12 months have been unbelievable. Like this time last year, if you had told me all this was going to happen, I'd have said you were crazy.
Well, and isn't that the great thing about the sport, and maybe frustrating, I know, but especially when good guys like you and respected horsemen like you, Brendan Walsh, when you get on this streak like that, I think a lot of people are happy for you, like me. I'm sure you know that a lot of people out there are rooting for you because they respect how you treat the horses, and it's about the horses. And, of course, you want to win, but it's about the horses.
Of course. At the end of the day, Kenny, we'd be nowhere without them, and that's the sad thing about all the controversy that's going on at the moment, with everything with your tracks and what have you here, there, and everything. People don't realize, the vast majority of people that are in horse racing, at the end of the day, it all boils down to the horses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything we do every day goes into the care of the horses. If I thought we couldn't care for our horses properly, and we didn't have the, everything in place to give them, 200% care,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't do it.
Right.
And people tend to forget that. And at the end of the day, we all do it because we all love horses, and that's why we came into the sport initially. We didn't come into the sport initially to win, grade ones or any of that. We came into it because we loved horses, and people forget that, and that's the sad part of it all. Is that tends to be forgotten in all this.
Yeah.
We all want to do what's best for the horse at the end of the day, and you know. I think people are getting branded wrongly because of it.
And you growing up in Ireland, and I had the pleasure of covering the Irish Derby. I was at the Curragh when Galileo won.
Oh wow!
Oh, what a race! What a horse!
Yeah.
But the whole culture over there, to get to visit some of the farms like I did and be around it. I mean, it's such pride and generational. Guys whose father grew up and were grooms and things. There's great pride in that. I think it's true in other parts, but there's a uniqueness to me about the way the Irish culture is with horse racing, Brendan.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, everybody, everyone knows somebody, like the jockeys and the trainers and that are household names, and some of the horses
Mm-hmm.
are household names in Ireland. Everybody watches the Derby, they watch the Grand National, they watch Cheltenham every year, and there's just a great, my family didn't have horses, but they had an interest, and
Right.
and my dad always had a great interest in horses, and of course when I went into the game, then he started following it more and more. But it's huge in Ireland. But a lot of Irish people are country people, Kenny, and if you're not brought up around horses, you're brought up around animals in general, and there's just a kind of a country way about the place, and so I think people are just drawn towards racing in Ireland, and it's great. You a lot of great horse people came out of Ireland back through the years. Some of the
Legends.
I mean,
Yeah.
that explains itself, really.
Who's the biggest influence been on you so far, do you think, as far as a trainer? I think I know the answer, but I'll ask you.
My dad was a huge influence on me. Eddie Keneally was a big influence on me. Mark Wallace, who I worked in Newmarket, was a big influence on me. I've had there's too many people to name. But I've had a lot of people that have had a huge input into my whole career as we went along. Jimmy Lenihan, a guy that ran the farms, Sheikh Mohammed's farms in Ireland. They've been people who still to this day. I mean, Jimmy was in Dubai the night the horse won the Derby. Them people have been invaluable to me, Kenny.
Right. And I think vice versa. I figured you'd certainly mention Eddie, and I knew you'd mention your dad. That was kind of my two guesses right off the top, because it's kind of like horses in general, isn't it? There's a lot of layers. You're going to have 3-year-olds. You're going to have some grass horses. You're going to have some sprinters. I think that's kind of like everybody's life, isn't it? No matter what career they go in, there's so many people that help put a little bit of themselves into you, as they have with me in my career.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, everybody helps. There's been a lot of people. I mean, if I started to
Sure.
think and talk about people that have had, just put very, very positive ideas or have had a positive input in my career, Kenny, I'd be here all day if we started to go through people, But they've been great people. I've been very lucky, and I think that's been a big part of it. We've built up some good connections, and a lot of them people have helped me along the way, and I could never thank them enough. A lot of these people, they've been fantastic.
Well, it's a good run. You're still on a good run. And we'll keep an eye on you down at the fairgrounds this year, and certainly keep an eye on the progress of Maxvill, who is going to be one to watch for the 2020 Derby, and I certainly hope you're there and all systems are go for that.
Yeah, please God, Kenny, we'll try our best anyway to make it, and who knows, it'd be really great to be part of another one. We got a little taste of it last year with Plus Q, and I remember driving back to Keenan the Monday after the Derby last year, going over to train, and I thought I'd be exhausted after the Derby because I had, Dubai a month before that, my dad's death in between it, and I thought, oh, I'm going to be exhausted. All I had in my mind was trying to find the next one to have another go again. So once you get a taste of it at all, I think you're hooked on it then, and I can understand now why you know in Europe it's a little different, but here, you ask anybody, they all, if you ask any trainer, they'll tell you the race they really want to win is the Kentucky Derby at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, Brendan, all the best to you, and we'll be in touch and catch up again soon, okay?
Thanks very much, Kenny.
Thank you. Thank you, Brendan Walsh. Talented trainer, multiple graded stakes winners, including Maxvill, one to watch in 2020 Derby scene. Back with more right after this.